Well then, it's been over a week since my last video about class changes. Now we have gone through 4 different patch cycles in the beta. We have enough data, enough changes, enough reverts and reworks that we can make another video about it. Some things have been straight up changed, some things are straight up new, and then others are, I guess, Blizzard changing their mind. There were some ludicrous nerfs that I mentioned in the previous class changes where Blizzard, rethought a little bit how to nerf those abilities. So let's start immediately with Death Knight. Death Knight's main nerfs for all the specs are still there. Frost still has their two-hander passive nerfed, their Obliterate nerfed, and their Pillar of Frost nerfed. Blood DK still has the brutal 30% flat damage nerf to all their abilities, and still some of the base damage of their abilities on Hurt Strike, Marrowrend, and Blood Boil increased, but doesn't make up for the 30% overall nerf. And then Unholy has gotten its 2 strongest legendaries nerfed. When it comes to the actual changes in this last round of beta changes, we have Biting Cold, further buffed. It used to be at 15% and then it was buffed to 25 and now it's been buffed to 30. Cold Tear's Favor, pretty happy about this. I was sad when the original nerf was announced. Cold Tear's Favor was previously doing 15% damage increase. It was nerfed to 5 and now it's gone back to 10. Rage of the Frozen Champion, on the other hand, has been completely reverted. It used to be doing 15% increased damage and generate 8 runic power. It was nerfed to 10 and 6, and now it's gone back to 15 and 8. New things. We have Death's Embrace. Death's Embrace now increases the duration by even more. This is particularly strong when you tie it together with the Anti-Magic Shell talent, Anti-Magic Barrier. It actually becomes a pretty chunky defensive, just on a 40-second cooldown. For magic damage is pretty strong. And then you have Pheromones. Pheromones has been changed around a bit. Pheromones now is going to give you 15% haste for Frost and Unholy when you are within your Death and Decay, which is pretty strong. And the original nerf to Blood, which nerfed it down to 5% haste from 10, is going to find itself a middle ground to 8%. And that's all for Death Knight. Demon Hunter, though, has gotten more drastic changes because they are saying goodbye to 2 legendaries for 2 new ones. The only other change they have received is the nerf, the pretty big nerf to Fell Bombardment, their 2-go legendary for their AoE rotation. Now, the extra damage is going to apply only to the primary target of your Throglaive and not to the Ricochet. This is pretty nasty. But on to the actual changes, the big changes. Alph, Giant Empowerment, and Inner Demons are gone. Alph, Giant Empowerment was pretty much just a PvP legendary trait, giving you the size, movement speed, and melee range was pretty good with keeping pace with your opponents in arena, but not as much in PvE. Inner Demons was, again, typical fitting Demon Hunter ability, completely random. You have no way and no choice in how it works, and when it works, it's a big splash of AoE damage for free. So, typical Demon Hunter thing. I guess that's gone now. For Darker Nature and Burning Wound. Darker Nature, it's pretty disappointing. Killing an enemy with Eye-Beam has a 25% chance to convert their soul into a Demon Soul. Demon Soul means 20% more damage for 15 seconds when you pick it up. You have to kill an enemy with Eye-Beam and then you have a 25% chance. It's not that great. And Burning Wound can give you some more options in your playstyle, I guess. Demon's Bite is going to leave behind a DOT on the target for 15 seconds, which is going to increase the Immolation Aura damage by 50%. Obviously, this legendary is trash for single target. Even for Cleave, is not that good. But in AoE situations, you could find yourself, against 5 targets. You could be tab target, hit all of them with Demon's Bite, apply the DOT to all 5 of them, and then have a stronger Immolation Aura. Now, Immolation Aura does fuck all damage. This DOT does 5% of your attack power, which is also fuck all. So, in the current state, the legendary is trash, but if it's actually balanced properly, this could be a pretty interesting one. At least it's gonna change the way you would play your rotation in AoE. It gives you some more versatility, some more variety, so that's good. But for Demon Hunter, not really much else. They have been one of the least changed specs over the last week, so that's all. Now, going over to Druid. The old buffs to balance are still there, 10% damage increase. The old nerf to Restoration Druid, 20% less damage on their Sunfire is still there, and the old 5% overall damage buff to Feral is still there. So what changed? Well, the buffs also, I forgot, the buffs to Soul of the Forest and Starlord for balance are still there. So again, what changed? The legendary effects for balance have been changed. Balance of all things has been hit with the nerf bat again. Remember that this legendary started out at 105% crit, then it was nerfed to 75, decreasing by 15% every second, and now it's gone down to 50%, decreasing by 10% per second. Pretty big nerf. You will overall more or less gain the same crit because it's going to decrease slowly, more slowly than before. But still, the trickle-down nerfing of this legendary, I wonder when it's going to stop, because it was so powerful. What wasn't powerful was on its clear vision. On its clear vision was terrible before, was making your Star Surge and Starfall have a 15% chance to make each other free. Now, Star Surge has a 20% chance to make Starfall free, and Starfall has a 40% chance to make Star Surge free. Obviously, much better now, this legendary. It's still gonna feel kind of bad. The fact that you are still gonna be cock-blocked because your Starfall cannot stack on itself. So whenever you use Starfall once, you simply have to wait until it's over. Any other cast of Starfall is just gonna be wasting resources. So this doesn't feel that nice. If it could stack, then it would be great. Another change to a legendary Time-Worn Dreambinder. Before, Star Surge and Starfall used to reduce the cost by 15% for 6 seconds. Now the cost reduction is only 10% for 5. The difference though is that now the damage also increases by 10% for 5 seconds, stacking up twice. This is a much better change because, as I mentioned, since you're stuck with a single iteration of Starfall on a single target at any time, if you can stack it, then what you can do is increase its damage. So 20% damage increase is decent. Talking about legendary changes, going over to Feral now. A good change to Eye of Fearful Symmetry. Eye of Fearful Symmetry used to give you 3 combo points to your next finishing move after Tiger's Fury. Now it's going to be 2 combo points to your next 2 finishers. This is just going to give you more room to maneuver around your combo point generation without, you know, overcapping because you're generating too many in a single go. Now you are more spread in your combo generation. Too bad Feral still sucks for this to make any difference, but hey, baby steps. And down to Resto Druid. Now this is not as terrible as it seems, okay? Dark Titan's Lesson goes from increasing the Life Bloom healing by 25% on their final hit to reducing the healing done of all of Life Bloom's healing by 10%. This seems terrible, but then you remind yourself that Life Bloom healing isn't that high to begin with, and the only reason why you're using this legendary is because you want the bonuses from photosynthesis, literally doubling the effectiveness of a talent. That's why you use this legendary. So yes, you lose the healing effectiveness, but you still should consider this legendary when in relation to the effect you can have with photosynthesis, and not because of the healing of Life Bloom. Some changes to Covenants as well. You have gotten a slight nerf on your Kyrian Covenant. Your Empower Bond has gone from 25% to 20% of your damage, or their damage, depending on the bond. But the other change, for the 50th time, Ravenous Frenzy has been changed. The duration is back up to 20 seconds from 15, but now you're only going to gain 1% haste per stack instead of 2%, in case it wasn't clear. Now, on to Hunter. Pretty big list of changes here because we start with Beast Mastery. Beast Mastery has had Dark Command go from 10% more chance now to 15 and now to 20. Flame Walker has gone to a 10% chance of making your next kill command consume no focus to 15% and now 25%. This is likely because Warlock Stalker, which was their strongest legendary by far, increased your pet's crit damage by 30% and it was gutted to 15, but now it's been buffed to 20. So the other 2 legendaries have got them buffed as well to keep up with this legendary, since this one was already the strongest one. Now when it comes to marksmanship, I am sad. I was celebrating the nerf of Serpent Stalker's Trickery, going down to shooting 3 Chimera shots to 2 targets instead of 3, and now it's gotten reverted back to 3 targets. This is a sad day. Eagle Talons True Focus is a legendary that has been changed as well for marksmanship. Now the focus cost reduction from 30% is now 50. When it comes to survival, Survival's Butcher Bones Fragment has gone from 10% extra damage to 15, and now it's been buffed to 20% extra damage, stacking up 6 times. Before, the stacking was also 10 times, so now it's a much lower time needed to stack up the extra damage. 4 extra damage now, 20%. Same thing I said before, this is useless because the base damage of Carve is shit. Latent Poison Injector is another buff that they received. It used to be 10%, and then it was buffed to 13%, and now it's been buffed to 18% of your attack power. And also there's been a revert on Wildfire Cluster. It used to be 33%, it was nerfed to 20%, and now it's gone back to 33%. The bigger change though for survival is that Warlock Stalker used to have a 10% chance to reset the cooldown of Wildfire Bomb, but now it has a 15% chance. So this is a good start, since Wildfire Bomb is by far the most important part of your toolkit as a survival hunter. And that's all for survival, as well as the entirety of Hunter. Marksmanship still has the nerf to Secrets of the Unblinking Vigil and the nerf to Chimera Shot, and then not much else has changed. Now looking over to Mage, where did we leave Mage? Mage had just gotten their legendaries changed in the previous patches, as well as a overall 10% damage increase for fire. But what changed in this patch? The damage for fire is still there, no changes. The legendaries though have received quite some changes for all specs. So first of all, we have Arcane Bombardment, because it doesn't seem to be stopping. It started at 30% damage, then it was buffed to 80, and now it's been buffed to 130% damage in your execute window. This is a little bit worrying, you know. I think it's going to be nerfed. Arcane Harmony has gotten changes as well. The initial Arcane Harmony gave you a 10% base extra damage on your Arcane Missiles, and used to give you 2% extra damage on your Arcane Barrage. Then the extra damage on your Arcane Missiles was removed, but the extra damage on your Arcane Barrage was buffed to 6%, stacking up 100 times. And now, another change, the extra damage on your next Arcane Barrage is now 10%, and it stacks up to 30. This is, I don't know, probably some better wording, maybe to stop some PvP cheese. You know, let the stacks go to 100 in PvP and you can one-shot someone, maybe. But yeah, it's definitely a nice buff, the 10% increase. Typhon Storm, this is not good. Not for me at least. I mentioned I was happy when this was nerfed because I didn't want Arcane to have to put Evocation as an actual buff in their pre-pull rotation. And now it's back to giving you 2% intellect per second of channeling Evocation. So this is back to being Najara's Font of Power for Arcane. Now, the other thing that worries me about Arcane is Temporal Warp. Temporal Warp used to be this completely forgotten legendary that nobody cared about, because it used to give you 15% haste for 20 seconds. You know, trash. But then it was buffed to 25% haste for 30 seconds. Okay. Now, it's 30% haste for 40 seconds. So, it's Bloodlust, basically. Now you can just use Bloodlust whenever it's off cooldown for you. Okay. I mean, it's true, Arcane doesn't function in this long of windows. You know, this 40 second of haste increase is not as powerful for Arcane, to be fair, but still, you know, it's starting to be a pretty meaty buff for Arcane. Now, on to fire. Yes, the fire damage buffs are still there, we mentioned that already. What about the legendaries? Of course, Sun King's Blessing has been changed a little bit. Sun King's legendary used to be a 6 odd streak required to put you in a 6-second combustion. Then it was giga nerfed to require 16 odd streaks for 4 seconds of combustion, and then Blizzard went back to meet the two changes halfway. 12 stacks of odd streaks for 5 seconds of combustion. Feathered Incantation has been changed. This is going to be better later on with the scaling. Now you gain 3% crit up to 15% whenever you deal consecutive crits. Of course, at the start of the expansion, when you have 24% crit, good fucking luck. Molten Skyfall, again, another slight change. It was changed previously. It used to require 30 Fireballs or Pyroblast to cast a free Meteor, then it was nerfed to 40, and now it's been buffed to 25. A little bit of ping-pong going around with changes here for fire. Similar front for Frost Mage. Frost Mage caught some attention because of their massive nerf on their Freezing Winds, and also because of the ridiculous number on their Cold Front. Cold Front used to have 15 required Frostballs to cast a free Frozen Orb, and then it was nerfed to 90, and then it's been reverted a little bit lower. Now it's only 60 Frostballs or Flurries to cast a free Frozen Orb. Freezing Winds has been buffed. Now you gain Fingers of Frost every 2 seconds whenever Frozen Orb is active. Don't forget that Freezing Winds used to look like this, so you're not getting back your perma Frozen Orb legendary anymore. So this buff doesn't seem that nice in comparison. Now the real buff though is Glacial Fragments. Glacial Fragments is the new 2-go legendary for AoE situations. It was actually very good before, but it was completely overshadowed by Freezing Winds and the perma Frozen Orb. But now Ice Lance has a 20% chance to explode for 40% of spell power, And now the chance is increased to 100% if your target is standing in a blizzard. So now you basically have AoE ice lances guaranteed whenever you blizzard. This is actually very powerful, and I believe it's gonna be nerfed. No other major changes, some necessary changes to their legendaries, because of course some of the numbers Blizzard came up with were obscene. That was predictable. Now on to Monk. Happy about the change to Charred Passions. I always mention that whatever can give Brewmaster more damage, the better, because it's one of their biggest weaknesses in Mythic Plus. Now Charred Passions started out as 30% extra damage as fire damage, and then it was buffed to 70%, and now it's been buffed to 100%. So now your Blackout Kick and Spinning Crane Kick are essentially going to duplicate their damage as fire damage, which is good. Mighty Power is instead a defensive legendary, which is starting to be pretty solid, because now Celestial Brew is going to increase your armor by 25%, and Purifying Brew is going to have a 25% chance to not consume a charge. This is starting to be pretty significant of a defensive legendary. Certainly the strongest of all defensive legendaries so far. Stormstout/Keg has gotten reverted. The damage is back up at 30% instead of 15%. This is not that relevant. The strength of this legendary was in the extra charge of Keg Smash, not really in the damage. But still, as I mentioned, Brewmaster damage is always relevant to have, so good. Mistweaver, on the other hand, has gotten a nerf and a buff. The nerf to their strongest legendary. As I mentioned before, this is the way of beta. You nerf the strongest things and you buff the weakest ones. Tear of Morning now is going to increase the healing by 10% instead of 15%, and the duplicated healing of Enveloping Mist and Vivify is down to 20% from 25%. Bad nerf, obviously, it hurts, but some hope, because Yulon's Whisper has been nearly tripled in effectiveness. Now, after activating Thunder Focus T, you're gonna have a 6 heal AoE for 150% multiplied by 3 spell power. This is very powerful. Unfortunately, it's going to be on a 15 yards range, can still be a little bit sketchy to work properly, but now it's actually a very meaty heal. It's a good panic AoE heal for Mistweaver, and they don't really have that. No, don't mention Essence Font, or I'm gonna ban you from my channel. When it comes to Windwalker, on the other hand, Windwalker has gotten some changes. I would say for the best. Windwalker has gotten a buff to Jade Ignition, so it's going to be extra AoE damage for Windwalker. They've also gotten a revert on their single target legendary. Last Emperors has gotten from 100% nerfed to 55%, now it's back up to 100%. And now Juan's Battle Gear has gotten some more viability, because now the cooldown reduction on Fist of Fury when you use Rising Sun Kick is up to 2.5 seconds instead of 1.5. It's still not very powerful, but we are getting there. And then their Covenant ability, Fallen Order, has gotten nerfed because of reasons. It already wasn't very powerful, so I don't know, go figure that out. And that's pretty much it for Monk. Not many changes still, but decent. I'm particularly interested in the Mistweaver new Yulon legendary that I will be trying soon. Looks interesting enough. Now, on to the next. Now, going quickly through Paladin, since they haven't received many changes in this patch. They have received a few changes in the previous patches, but in this patch, Holy Shock is still buffed from 9-second cooldown to 7.5. The real changes are for protection. Holy Avenger's Engraved Sigil now only gives Avenger's Shield a 35% chance to reset itself instead of 50%. And they have now put a cap on Bulwark of Righteous Fury. One of the bigger offenders for bursts of damage for Prot Paladin in Mythic Plus was the fact that the damage increase to your Shield of the Righteous through Avenger's Shield did not have a cap. It kept stacking. Now it's gonna cap at 5 targets. So this is big. Other changes was Ret received their legendary changes. Protection and Holy already went through some changes for the legendaries, but not Ret. Final Verdict has been butchered. Now your Templar's Verdict, renamed Final Verdict, used to have a 50% chance to activate Hammer of Wrath and reset its cooldown. Now it only has a 15% chance. So massive. Rejoice, because Relentless Inquisitor is now going to give you 1% extra haste. Great. And then Vanguard's Momentum. You went from 2 charges of Hammer of Wrath for 6% holy damage to 1 charge of Hammer of Wrath and 9% more holy damage. Not many other changes for holy beyond that. And now we can go immediately into Priest. Now, Priest, as usual, Shadow Priest is a diva, trying to hog all the changes. Now, in this new patch, the previous nerfs to Shadow Priest are still there. The damage nerfs to things like Devouring Plague, Searing Nightmare, Shadow War Pain are still there. The Insanity Generation nerfs are still there. The massive nerf to the legendary for AoE, Shadow Flame Prism, is still there. So what changed? Well, Shadow Fiend base duration went from 10 seconds to 15. This is pretty good. At least now you can use the Shadow Flame Prism legendary for 5 more seconds default. The mana regen extra for Disc and Holy is not that important. Schism is still nerfed for Discipline. You still only do 25% more spell damage. This has not changed. Discipline has gotten a buff though on the Penance legendary. 60% chance to make your next Penance hit for 3 extra bolts after you use Pyreward Radiance. Holy Priest has received a whole slew of conduit buffs. Some of them are pretty interesting, especially when they will scale later on. Of course, at the first ranks they are okay. Shadow Priest. Back to Shadow Priest, they have received a change to Auspicious Spirits. Now they make your shadowy apparitions deal 30% extra damage, but they generate 1 extra insanity instead of 2. Damnation has been nerfed. Now Devouring Plague that you cast with Damnation is no longer free. You actually have to pay for it. Kalbadar has received a double damage on their Mind Blast, from 30% extra damage on your Mind Blast to 60% extra damage, which is very good in single target, and in your new way to AoE if you're using Psychic Link and splashing damage with your Mind Blast. And that's pretty much it when it comes to Priest. Not many other changes. Holy still has their 5% extra overall healing and damage, and Discipline had just gotten that single legendary. Now on to Rogue. So the previous patches of Rogue sort of nerfed them across the board. Even the poor Assassination that did nothing was completely unaware of all the OPness of Outlaw and Subtlety, got hit by a nerf bat for whatever reason. So what happened this patch? Slice and Dice for Assassination, good change. Instead of increasing attack speed even more, now it's gonna give you extra energy generation. This is good because, as I mentioned before, extra auto attacks for Outlaw and extra auto attacks for Subtlety actually give you something. They can give you extra combo points and they can give you extra procs on your passives, but for Assassination, extra auto attacks, it was just extra poison damage with your poisons, and that's it. So giving energy regen to Assassination correctly identifies the fact that Slice and Dice isn't as powerful for Assassination. It needed something else. Now, talking about the poor Assassination that was hit with nerfs for no reason, a lot of those have been reworked. Dashing Scoundrel used to be doing 30% extra crit damage on your poison and generate 2 energy. Then it was nerfed to only 8% and 1 energy, and now it's been reverted again to a middle ground. 15% extra crit damage, but only 1 energy generation. Duskwalker's patch has been buffed as well. The cooldown of Vendetta is now going to be reduced by 1 second per 50 energy instead of 65. And Zoldyck Insignia, another one that confused me in the previous nerfs. It used to be 30%, it was nerfed to 20, and now it's been reverted back to 30. When it comes to Outlaw, no dice when it comes to Blade Flurry. Blade Flurry is still nerfed. 40% attack power damage when they activate it instead of 120. The actual changes were to their legendaries. First we have Celerity. Celerity used to be doing 15% extra damage during Adrenaline Rush, and the extension of Adrenaline Rush was for 4 seconds. Then it was nerfed to 5% and 3 seconds, and now it's been buffed back again to 10% and 3 seconds. Concealed Blunderbuss has also been changed. It used to be 33% chance to hit 3 times, then it was nerfed to 30% chance to hit 2 times, and now it's been buffed to 40% chance to hit 2 times. Greenskin's Wickers has been reverted. It used to be 200%, it was nerfed to 120, and now it's been buffed again to 200. Guile Charm has been buffed, but, you know, don't get excited. It used to be 30% extra damage for 15 seconds, it was nerfed to 8% and 10 seconds, and now it's gone back to 10% and 10 seconds. So it's still terrible compared to what it was before, but then again, before it was completely broken. Now, Subtlety changes, they had been murdered when it came to changes before. The changes now aren't really that much better. Enveloping Shadows has still remained nerfed. Akari's Soul Fragment has gotten a slight buff, but compared to the previous version, it's just terrible. 15% effectiveness on your Shadow Strike copy has been buffed to 25% effectiveness. Reminder that this legendary used to be 100% effectiveness and combo generation, and now it's 25% effectiveness and no combo generation, so pretty bad. When it comes to general legendaries, there have been some interesting changes. Mark of the Master Assassin used to be 5 seconds after breaking stealth to be guaranteed crits, then it was nerfed to 2, and now it's been going back up to 4. An interesting one is Tiny Toxic Blades. Now, Tiny Toxic Blade has been completely changed. Instead of giving you a spread, poison and bleed for assassination, is now going to give you 350% increased damage and no longer cost energy. So it's just a mini nuke. Interesting. Those are all the changes for Rogue. Yeah, it's still pretty tough for Sub and Outlaw, but they were in a very, very overpowered state in the beta. Now, very, very quickly, we are going through Shaman because there has basically been no change. The only change is that Fate Transfusion's extra healing has gone from 15% to 40%. And that's basically all the new changes for Shaman. Now we are getting very close to the end. We have Warlock. One of the bigger changes for this patch is that Wrath of Consumption is now going to work with Corruption as well. This is very good, because now with a single seed of Corruption to spread Corruption around, you can guarantee that this is going to be very, very high in stacks throughout Mythic Plus. It would have been harder and more frustrating trying to tag everyone with Agony and make sure Agony was on when the target died so that you could keep this legendary buff active. Now with Corruption it makes it much easier. Okay, great change. And then for Destruction, these nerfs for Reign of Chaos and Roaring Blaze are still there. And I already previewed the legendary changes for Destruction in my Destruction Warlock video. Madness of the Ajakir, Chaos Bolt damage after using Chaos Bolt has been buffed from 10% to 25%, and Odor, the Havoc legendary, has gone from 15% extra damage on the Havoc target to 25%. Another more interesting changes is that your main cooldown reduction legendary, the Wilfred's Sigil of Superior Summoning, has gotten its values changed. Dark Glare is going from a 1 second reduction to 2 second reduction, which is also the least impactful of the big cooldowns. More importantly, Demonic Tyrant has been doubled in cooldown reduction from 0.3 to 0.6, the cooldown being lower since Demonic Tyrant has the lower base cooldown, obviously. And then Infernal, slight nerf from 2 second reduction to 1.5, and that's all for Warlock, not really many changes. We are closing with Warrior. So, I mentioned previous legendary changes for both Fury and Arms, but not many for Prot, which is where they will be in this change now. So for Arms, legendary reverts. Enduring Blow and Exploiter have gotten their values reverted, and those were the nerfs. So nerfs are gone for the Arms legendaries, and there has been a slight change for Battlelord. Battlelord used to be a 30% chance, which was buffed to 45. Now it's been slightly nerfed to a 40% chance, but when it does proc, it's going to reduce the rage cost of your Mortal Strike by 12. So it's still a good change for Arms legendaries. They've basically been all unnerfed. When it comes to Fury, on the other hand, the damage increases on all the base abilities of Fury are still there. Bloodthirst, Raging Blow, and Whirlwind have still gotten their 10 to 15% damage buff. When it comes to their legendaries, the more important one is the change, the interesting change really, to Deathmaker. Because Deathmaker used to give you a 25% chance with a 5 second of Siegebreaker, which was nerfed to 20% chance in 5 seconds, and now all of a sudden it's been buffed. 30% chance and 6 seconds of Siegebreaker. So, interesting change. The other changes, Reckless Defense and Will of the Berserker, are not that impactful. They are buffs overall, but still not very interesting. When it comes to protection though, we have the changes to the legendaries finally. So, Reprisal is garbage, completely useless. The real big change is that the wall is now going to generate extra rage on your shield slam and extra cooldown reduction for your shield wall. The real disappointing one is Thunderlord. Thunderlord now is going to be capped. Before, it used to be each enemy hit, it was going to reduce Demo Shout by 3 seconds. Now it's going to be each enemy hit reduces it by 1.5 up to 4.5. So essentially capped at 3 targets. I don't believe this is going to stay like this. I think it's going to be reverted. This is way too shit in the current state. Really, really bad. And this is pretty much the last change for Warrior. Woo! And after 30 fucking minutes, I am done listing all the changes of these last 3 to 4 patch cycles for Shadowlands Beta. Build 36206. We have gotten some new changes. We have gotten some reverts and rollbacks of previous changes that were proved to be a little bit too heavy-handed by Blizzard. Some of those changes have been slightly toned down in their heaviness, particularly the Fire Mage, the Frost Mage nerfs needed some changes, honestly. So I'm gonna keep following up the future changes coming in for class changes, because there's going to be way more coming in the future following the development. In the meantime, I have chosen my mini DPS spec to make my next spec video of. You are currently voting in the comments of the Destruction Warlock video for the second mini DPS spec to go over. So we will see what comes out of it, and I'll leave you guys to your complaining of your favorite spec being nerfed. And in the meantime, I'm gonna go and play Chronicon.